Hello, everyone. My name is Corrie Hawes, and today I am coming to you from the Career Development and Experiential Learning Center here at FPU. And today I just wanted to talk with you about resumes that score interviews. And so we're going to go through the different things that are incorporated into resumes and just give you tips along the way to help guide you as you create your resume. I also just wanted to mention that if you have questions during this presentation, feel free to just go ahead and drop them in the chat. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A time where we can tackle those questions. So definitely drop them in the chat so we can tackle them at the end. I first wanted to just talk to you about the mission of our office. So we are here to equip you to discover your vocational calling and empower you to apply your strengths, knowledge, skills, and abilities to pursue a life of purpose in alignment with God's will. The purpose of our center is to just support you. And we know that it can feel really intimidating at times to ask for career help. I know that when I was an undergrad student here at FPU, I didn't want anyone to find out that I had no idea how to make a resume. I felt like I got to my senior year and I was too embarrassed to bring up the fact that I hadn't made one. But hindsight, I can see that no one ever taught me how to create a resume. And so we are here to not be intimidating. We're here to support you and champion you at whatever step you are in the process. So our services are here to just walk alongside you. And that can be your first year of college, it can be your last year of college, and it can even go beyond because our services are free for life. So even as an alumni, you're welcome to use our services. Although we're located in the Steinert Campus Center, we offer all of our services virtually as well. And so those resources that you can see here are even just part of the offerings that we have to help you discover your calling and become ready for the job market. So just don't hesitate to reach out. Today, we're going to be discussing what a resume is and what it's supposed to do for you. We're going to talk about how you can strategically showcase your qualifications in each of the essential components that are located in a resume. And then also all throughout the presentation, we're going to be showing you different, or really just one sample resume, but we're going to show you the different sections that are included as those essential components in a resume. So let's dive into what is a resume. A resume is a screening device for employers. It is used to get employers' attention. So a well-written and employer-focused resume can get that recruiter's attention really well. We in our office would love to give you tips even today, but even beyond, on how to tailor your resume for each of the jobs that you apply for. That tailoring process is really important because it can get you through the initial screening phases to get an actual interview. And so I'll give you some tips along the way of how you can tailor your resume. In other words, you can customize it to any job that you're applying for. A resume is also a living document that's going to last through your career journey. So it's something that you can build upon as your career grows. A resume is not a biography. So we don't need to know every detail about you. I like to think of a resume as putting your best career foot forward. So in some ways you get to kind of customize and decide what foot you want that to be. You can leave off a lot of things that you might have heard or seen in examples of resumes before, like a picture. It's not needed. We don't need to know that much about you. And so we can keep it clean and concise, and we'll show you how to do that. A resume is also not a silver bullet that gets you the job. There's no promise that you're going to get a job through resume, but it's one component that you can build to be very strong as you are in your job search. So let's dive in. What is a resume? It's a summary of your skills, your education and certifications. It can include your accomplishments, awards, and honors, and also your professional experience and community service experience. All of the information that you know on your resume is a lot for an employer to absorb. It can take so much for an employer to look through so many resumes. And actually, employers only spend about 8 seconds viewing a resume. So it's extremely important that you write a concise and balanced resume to get you through that initial screening process. The first component that's essential on a resume is going to be the heading. And here's an example down here at the bottom, and this is a resume of someone named Mary Smith. Now for her heading, she has her first and last name, and you really want your name to be the thing that is the biggest on your resume. You want it to pop, you want their eyes to draw to the name, but you also don't want it to be too big. So don't overdo it, but definitely have it pop out as a bigger font and maybe bolder for this heading section. Then you can have your phone number. Your cell phone is great for your phone number. You don't even need to put mobile or cell on there. You don't need to describe it. You can just go ahead and put your cell right there. And then you can put an email. You really want to keep it professional. And using Gmail as your primary professional email is really suggested rather than Hotmail, Yahoo, or AOL. It just has more of a professional feel. So just like Mary did, she has mssmith@gmail.com. And then next you can have your location. So your city and state. A longer address is no longer required for this section. And then I want to talk about adding your LinkedIn URL to your heading. So your LinkedIn URL, it is something that is going to be an area where a recruiter can click in and see an even more extensive and expanded version of your resume and of your experiences. Now, if you're not on LinkedIn, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's completely fine. And our office has resources for you. So feel free to visit our website. You can find a resource to create your LinkedIn profile and give you tips for that. But if you're not on LinkedIn, you don't exist to a lot of recruiters. And so we highly suggest that. And you can even book an appointment and we can help you get started there. A quick little side note, if you're going to add your LinkedIn URL, you can shorten the URL to not include numbers. So you can shorten it by clicking into your profile, into your settings, and then URL, and then you can customize it to be more like a name versus name and number. And then finally, you're going to list the role or position that you are seeking. So for Mary Smith here, she has communications, customer service, and editorials as her career focus. You can also just list the name of the job title for the job in which you're applying for. And now you're ready to develop the next step, which is your career profile. And this is the top third of your resume, and we like to call it the billboard because it is the thing that will pique recruiters' interest to keep reading. Recruiters are going to scan this section to determine if they want to read the rest of your resume. So you can develop it thoughtfully and you can link your experience to the position. So it starts off with a brief power statement, as you can see. It's going to be 4 lines or less, and it's going to use employer-centered language. And you want this to align your qualifications to the job. So the keywords used throughout this power statement are going to be reflective of the language utilized within the job description or even the profession that you're going into. I want to just encourage you to really use the content in this section from the job description. And this is part of that tailoring and customizing part I wanted to discuss a little bit. One way that you can pull these keywords is to simply print out the job description of the job that you're applying for. You can grab a highlighter and spend 5 to 10 minutes highlighting keywords and key phrases from that job description that you feel like resonate with your experience and match your experience. This is a great place to include a lot of those words from the job description that the employer is looking for. We also want it to be eye-catching. So use language that is accurate to describe you, but also interesting. So you can use modifiers like highly adept or goal-oriented, solutions-focused, dynamic, or award-winning. You also want to keep it brief as you're doing this. If a power statement evolves into a list of everything you have to offer, it will not be as effective. And so you really want it to be 4 lines or less and very concise. The next part on that billboard, the top third of your resume, is going to be your skills section. And this is considered your core competencies or key strengths. This allows recruiters to get to know you very quickly. And so one way that you can do this is to just make a list of what you do well. You can finish the statement, I excel at blank. So I excel at public speaking is an example, or I excel at customer service. If you have experience with that and you feel like it's a strength that you bring, this is a great section to highlight that. You also want to include the skills that are required for the job. So just like that tailoring process of having your keywords, this is the perfect spot to just plug those keywords right in. You also want to have an emphasis on the hard skills. So think of this as your chance to sell yourself to an employer. You don't want to waste space with soft skills, like a word like dedicated. It can be a little too general, a little too broad. Think of skills that are a little bit more tangible, and use skills required from the job description. Use those words. Also, you want to avoid software and hardware names. If a job seeker's technology is essential, so if you see on the job description a required IT, you can create your own skills section that includes software and hardware. It might include coding as well. And we'd be happy to assist you with that if you need help with that. You also want to use consistency in your structure. You want to keep it balanced, be brief and focused. One way you can do that is to use the table feature in Microsoft Word or even Google Docs. You want to have the same number of bullets and no text wrapping. And so you could do 3 columns with 3 to 5 lines each. And finally, try not to be too repetitive. When pulling examples from down below in your resume from your work history into this section, you need to either remove it from that bottom section or reword it. Employers don't want to see repetitive words, so make sure to reword that. And so here's a visual example of this skills section. As you can see, we have 3 columns with 4 skills each listed in bullet point format. I would hope that most of these are actual keywords from the job description, so you can pull right into there if that aligns with you. And then here's another example of a different way that you can do it in more of a list form versus bullet points. Now we're going to move on to the next section, which is education and certifications. Now this section is going to be listed in reverse chronological order. In other words, you're just going to put your most recent education first, and then you'll work backwards from there. You're going to list your official degree names first. You are working really hard for those, or you worked really hard for those. So make sure it's the official title of your degree, and you can follow that by your major or emphasis. So for example, down below, this student, Mary, has a bachelor, or she's trying to attain her Bachelor of Arts in Communications, and she's also seeking another major for a Bachelor of Arts in English. And so you want to be able to spell it out. If you can't figure out how that should go for your degree, reach out to a program representative or your advisor, and they can help you. You just want to know how it's going to be printed on your diploma. And then next, you're going to list your institution's information. If your degree is currently in progress, then you can put expected or anticipated with the projected graduation date that you have. So this student is attending Fresno Pacific University in Fresno, California. Her expected graduation date is December 2020. And then you can list your accomplishments, any awards that you've received. You could even list a club that you're involved in. Anything that has happened during your time at that institution that you're proud of would be great to just list right underneath there with the dates. You could also include your GPA only if it's 3.5 or above. And then I wanted to also mention that you can list your certifications and licenses after your degrees. If you have anything that aligns with your career that you've become certified in or licensed in, this is a great place, and you'll just follow that same format. And then just a side note, do not list any high school if it was obtained over 3 years ago. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to experience. So this section of your resume is the most substantial portion and requires the most time investment. It showcases your job responsibilities and your accomplishments within the job. And you want all of that to be relatable to the job that you're applying for. In other words, repeating again, tailored to the job that you're applying for, customized for that job. So first, you can use a common or functional job title when possible. So you might have experience with a job title that was really specific to an employer. For example, Geek Squad member. A lot of people might not know what that means, and so you can shift it to technical support specialist. Or something like sandwich artist might be more like a cashier, something a little more general and widely accepted. You're going to list the company name and then the city, the state, and then the dates. So similar to the education, but for your dates, you're going to put the year from which you started this experience until when you finished, or if you're currently doing it, then you can use the word present or current. Then you're going to go into a description of your job responsibilities and the duties. What did you actually do? You can start with just 2 to 4 lines describing your actual job duties. And you want to focus on big picture details that are most relevant to the position you're applying for. It's also really key to use strong action verbs to kick off these sentences. You want to use present tense action verbs for the experiences that you're presently doing. And then you want to use past tense for the previous experiences. So current experience will be current tense, present tense. Past tense will be the previous experiences that you have. And I'll show you an example of that. You also want to use the employer's language. So use those keywords noted from the job description, but then describe them within your own qualifications. So you want to try to match your qualifications with what they're looking for in this section. And then finally, you're going to finish it with your accomplishments. And these look really good in bullet point format. You can have 1 to 5 bullets, and these are just listed directly beneath that responsibilities section to set them apart, and it will showcase your particular contributions. You can use numbers in this section, percentages, anything measurable in detail. So if you improved a process, if you decreased overhead costs, if you increased revenues, really thinking of measurable results are really big here. Often these accomplishments will prompt your interviewer to ask you questions related to these bullet points. So just be ready to tell your story when it comes to an interview. And then a last tip here, if you have volunteer work or internships or unpaid experiences, that could actually work in this section, as long as they're structured and ongoing experiences and they're related to your career goals. These things can help close experience gaps in the industry that you're going into, or it can enhance entry-level resumes. And setting up an appointment with us would be great in those scenarios, and we can help you differentiate if you should put volunteer work into this experience section or not. And let me just show you what an example looks like for this experience section. As you can see, this person, Mary, she has experience in the field of editing and writing. And so that's really relevant because she's going into that field. And so she's titled it Relevant Experience. And then she has her job title of Features Editor, the company, city, state, and years that she worked. And then she has that description of responsibilities. And let me just point out the beginning of each sentence, it starts with a strong action verb. She coordinated efforts among team and resolved issues among rights. She oversaw the distribution of monthly newspapers. She proofed and edited, and she captured. So those are really strong action verbs. Then she has her accomplishment. She was promoted from staff writer to features editor. And so that's a huge accomplishment where the recruiter's eyes are going to go right to that bullet point and go right to her accomplishment. And then you can see she has an other professional experience section where she has things like working at a coffee shop or working as an office manager. These aren't necessarily linked to the career choice of writing that she's going into. And so she has a whole separate section just for those items. So I want this to be an example to you of just how you can customize your resume. Instead of relevant experience, you could even say something like writing experience, or the field that I'm in is in higher education and counseling. So I could say counseling experience or higher education experience. You can customize that relevant to be fitting for your industry. And then here we go with the last section. This is community service or volunteerism. I like to call this community engagement as well. And so you can kind of customize that as well. This is going to be that last section, and this is included if you have space available. Now, you only want to include recent and continuous volunteer opportunities that you're involved with. And this section, when you include it in your resume, it shows your willingness that you go above and beyond. It's not just an occasional thing, but it's something that you go the extra mile and you care about this part of your life, even in the midst of being a busy student or being, you're working full time. This just shows how well-rounded you are to be involved in your community. It's going to follow the same structure as the other examples that we gave for experience, and you can also include those responsibilities and accomplishments. I do want to note that in this section, it's okay to have a little bit shorter of a responsibilities or accomplishments listed. So she mentioned that she oversees event setup and ensures guest needs are met. And so it's just a shortened snapshot of her volunteerism. And then this is what that completed resume looks like, all finished and all put together. And I really do want to encourage you, a resume can feel a little bit daunting, but when you break it up into each of the individual parts, it really is something that is manageable. And each part brings different aspects. And so I just encourage you, if you're struggling, to just take one part at a time and work through it. We have that heading at the top, and then the job title is listed, or the industry that she's going into is listed in that gray bar. Then we have that billboard right at the top. We have the profile, that power statement right at the top, and then followed by bullet points of skills. Then she has her education, she has her relevant experience, and then other professional experience, and then she ties it all together with that community service and volunteerism section. Another thing that's really important on a resume is that there's white space. White space is good. It gives breathing room. It helps a resume feel less chaotic when there's margin, right? So she has a 1/2 inch minimum margin all around the edge. And then another thing is just the consistency in your formatting is really important. If you have, if you're listing your dates one way in one section and then a different way in another section, that doesn't look very professional. So just make sure that you're being really consistent in your formatting. And then we suggest straight lined fonts like sans serif, something that looks professional but isn't busy. And so now you've finished your resume and it's time to proofread, proofread, proofread. This is a document that's almost ready to send to a recruiter, someone that could be your future employer. So you want to make sure it is dialed in and you've been looking at this thing frontwards, backwards for so long as you've been working on it. So it's going to need one or two other people's eyes to take a look at it. So read it frontwards and backwards, and then consider some questions for yourself as you proofread it, and then as you have others proofread it. Is your name and contact info correct? Does the resume include a variety of words, especially those strong action verbs? Is the proper tense used, and is there tense alignment? And make sure to print it out, take a wide view if you can to see everything together and see how it looks. Now, I also want to suggest an amazing tool that is here to support you as you're doing this final check or even in the beginning phases of your resume. You can utilize jobscan.co. And jobscan.co, you can upload the job description along with your resume, and then it will give you a percentage of match. And it will show you these are some of the keywords that you could use more in your resume or phrases in your resume. Now, if you skip this step, something like job scan or tailoring or customizing for a job description, you really just might completely miss out on an interview even. There is a system called an applicant tracking system. And think of it as a software that will, when lots of people apply for a job, it's going to take all of those documents and it's going to give it a percentage of match based off of how many words and key phrases match on that job description. If your percentage is too low, that applicant tracking system, they're not going to send your documents to a human to be reviewed. And so just know it's so important to do this tailoring step, and jobscan.co is here to really help you. And feel free to reach out to us if you've used as many scans as possible. I think you get 5 scans in a month. We have extra scans here in our office. And now that you're done, I recommend that you upload it to a PDF document. You want to share PDFs versus Word documents because Word documents can be edited if someone opens it. So go ahead and once it's final, make it a PDF and you're ready to send it. And finally, I just want to quickly go through these last minute resume tips. Do list relevant work history. Make sure it's relevant to where you're going and the job that you're applying for. Target your qualifications to the job. Include community service as applicable. And if it doesn't fit on your resume, LinkedIn is a great place for that community engagement. Proofread and get feedback. This is something that you want to just be completely dialed in. And so if you're struggling to find someone to give you that good feedback and proofread, just book an appointment with us. We would love to look through that resume with you and just help support you and work alongside you. Use an easy to read, consistent format, as we discussed, and use high quality paper if you're printing it out for an interview. Don't use abbreviations or acronyms. If you're going to use a shortened version of something, you want to spell it out first. So for Fresno Pacific University, if you wanted to use it as an acronym, don't, just spell it out. But in the future, if you're going to use it multiple times, let's say in a cover letter even, you can put the whole word, so Fresno Pacific University, followed by the acronym FPU in parentheses. But we suggest that you consistently spell it out. Don't use pronouns like I, me, my, or our. Don't use fancy fonts, binders, or borders, or layouts. We don't want it to feel clunky. You don't need to list your references or your hobbies on your resume. It's also not great to fold your resume And also you don't need to include a photo or your personal health info. I don't think recruiters want to see that. And then finally, I just wanted to show our contact information. I highlighted our email address. So that's career.services@fresno.edu. And that is the place, if you want to book an appointment, just shoot us an email and we can meet with you. We can meet with you virtually right now. Or just give us a phone call. We're here for you and we want to support you. Here's our staff here on the left. And I just also wanted to say thank you so much for your time and attention. I know it can be a lot to take in. So just thank you for taking time to look through this. I want to ask that you follow us on our Instagram. That's FPU_career_development. And the reason that we really want you to follow us is because we are pretty consistently posting internship opportunities, immediate job opportunities. We're highlighting the different workshops we're going through, and we also have a CAP. It's a program in the spring where you can develop your career skills. And then finally, our website's at the bottom of this slide, fpu.edu/career-development. And there you can find lots of self-directed resources. If you don't feel like booking an appointment, you can find resources there to help you on your journey. So thank you again, and I'll go ahead and open it up for question and answers.